I'm Nicole, 70, standing in the kitchen of my new, cozy two-bedroom cottage, making coffee in the early morning light. I can't help but reflect on the roller coaster ride that was the past couple of years. The news on the small TV under the cabinets is playing in the background, and I'm only half listening until I hear the anchor mention Costa Rica and extradition. My heart skips a beat as I turn up the volume. It's about an American couple extradited to face fraud charges. That couple is my son, Ryan, and his wife, Lily. They were extradited 6 months ago, and the trial was swift. Ryan got 7 years in federal prison and Lily got 5. Their assets, including the property in Costa Rica they bought with my money, were seized to pay restitution. But instead of the satisfaction I thought I'd feel, I mostly feel tired. The hardest part wasn't testifying against them or seeing Ryan in that orange jumpsuit during sentencing. It was the phone call from my granddaughter, Mia, 2 months after their arrest. She was calling from a foster home in San Jose. Hearing her voice, asking if her parents really stole from me, nearly broke my heart. I had to explain the inexplicable to a 14-year-old who'd lost everything. I remember how I got here, starting with that fateful Tuesday morning. I was in my garden, watering the roses that I'd always loved, when the phone rang. It was Ryan. His voice was strained and desperate, a tone I'd never heard from my 45-year-old son before. He said he needed to see me urgently. 20 minutes later, he arrived with Lily trailing behind him. Lily had always been beautiful, but in a calculating way that made me uncomfortable. That day, there was a predatory look in her eyes that sent a shiver down my spine. Ryan looked a mess, his hair disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and dark circles under his eyes. He told me he'd made some bad investments, and their house was in foreclosure. They were on the verge of losing everything. Lily piped up and said they needed $180,000 to stop the foreclosure and pay off the immediate debts. It was almost exactly the amount I'd saved over 45 years of marriage, supplemented by my late husband's life insurance and his small pension from the factory. They also asked if they could stay in my house temporarily. It was a 4-bedroom colonial that my husband and I had bought as newlyweds, where we'd raised Ryan. The mortgage had been paid off for 18 years, and it was too big for me now. Thinking about my grandchildren, 13-year-old Mia and 10-year-old Ethan, being homeless was unbearable. So, I agreed to give them the money and let them move in. The next few days were a blur of paperwork and phone calls. I liquidated my savings account, watching my life's savings disappear with a few signatures. The bank manager was concerned, but I was determined to help my family. The house transfer was more complicated, but I told my lawyer that this was the right thing to do for my son and his children. After we finalized everything, Ryan hugged me tightly and promised that we'd make it work. But over his shoulder, I saw Lily's expression. For a split second, her mask slipped, and I saw pure, calculating satisfaction. I told myself I was imagining things, that stress was making me paranoid. 3 weeks later, I woke up to an eerie silence. There was no sound of the kids getting ready for school or Lily making coffee. The house was empty and all the family photos and the kids' backpacks were gone. In the kitchen, I found a note from Lily. It said, "Thanks for everything. We sold the house and are starting fresh. Don't try to find us. Old fool, you smell." I was in shock. I had no money and no home. I tried calling Ryan and Lily, but their numbers were disconnected and their social media accounts had vanished. I was left homeless in what used to be my own home. Then, I found a real estate listing for my house. It was sold for $360,000, nearly twice what I'd given them. And buried in the legal jargon was a note about foundation issues. I knew about these problems. My husband and I had discovered them 16 years ago when we tried to finish the basement. Ryan was there when we got the engineer's report, so he knew too. Suddenly, everything made sense. Lily's satisfied smile, their rush to get the paperwork done, it was all a scheme. They'd not only stolen my money and house, but also left me with a worthless property. The phone rang, and it was a real estate agent calling about the foundation problems. The new owners were facing huge repair costs and were exploring legal action against the sellers. I told the agent I had no idea where Ryan and Lily were. I moved into a tiny efficiency apartment that smelled of disinfectant. I was isolated, depressed, and had no idea what to do next. Then the county fraud unit called. They'd opened an investigation based on the new owner's complaints. I was scared, but the detective assured me I was likely a victim. He said there were irregularities in the paperwork, and they needed to understand what had happened. That night, I couldn't sleep, thinking about all the lies Ryan had told me about his debts. The next day, I learned that Ryan and Lily were in Costa Rica. They'd bought property there shortly after selling my house. The detective asked me about the foundation issues, and I admitted that I knew about them, but never thought they'd sell the house. He advised me to speak to a lawyer. I met Sarah Thompson, a lawyer who took my case pro bono. She explained that Ryan and Lily had potentially violated multiple laws, including property fraud, elder abuse, and concealment of material defects. The good news was that the buyers weren't pursuing action against me. The bad news was that recovering my losses would be difficult as they'd moved most of the money offshore. However, there was an interesting development. The Costa Rican authorities had frozen their bank accounts because they'd made a critical error when buying property there. They'd claimed the money came from a gifted family property, but the bank discovered the foundation problems and ongoing legal issues. Costa Rica has strict laws against foreign nationals bringing in money from potentially fraudulent real estate transactions, so Ryan and Lily were facing criminal charges there. Sarah also found out that the foundation problems were much worse than we initially thought. The deterioration had accelerated in the past 6 years, and Ryan and Lily had moved into the house in 2021. I started to suspect that they'd intentionally made the problems worse. I remembered the basement renovations Ryan had insisted on doing himself, how he dismissed my concerns about cracks in the walls and the mysterious water damage. I also recalled paying a $6,000 deductible for water damage repairs to a company called Lily Restoration Services. When I checked, I found out that Lily was the sole owner of the company. We gathered evidence and met with the detective again. He said it was no longer a case of a desperate couple making bad decisions, but organized criminal activity. He proposed requesting their extradition for prosecution in the U.S. That night, Ryan called me, begging me not to sign the settlement and not to get them extradited. He said the kids would end up in foster care. But I was done being manipulated. I told him I knew about all their lies and schemes. The next morning, I told Sarah not to sign the settlement and to file whatever charges she could. I was sure. I realized that the grandchildren deserved better parents, and I was finally free from the burden of protecting those who didn't deserve it. Now, as I stand here in my new home, I've received a call from a social worker in San Jose. Mia is graduating from high school as valedictorian and has been accepted to Georgetown University on a full scholarship. She's moving back to the U.S. this fall, just a few hours away from me. She said she understands why I made the choices I did and hopes to meet me someday. I've come a long way from the broken woman who lost everything. I've learned that the strongest thing a victim can do is refuse to stay a victim. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about reclaiming your own life. And as I look forward to the possibility of seeing Mia again, I know that I'm finally on the path to healing.